Hello, this is Driver. Today we are going to be looking at the weapon module template for Ashes of the Singularity. Now, there are a lot of things about this template that are not immediately obvious to a lot of people. Even the spreadsheet has a lot of information. So we are going to be going through everything, every column that is used, and how some fun things such as this column and this column work. So, column 1. This is the weapon name as it is stored in the game. This is the module that this is how a unit has its weapon. If we were to show, not here, but go back here and into unit modules, you would see this is the weapon, and that's how it's stored. So next, this is for the in-game display when a unit when you hover over weapons. This is citing this is citing um, a certain cell on the spreadsheet telling the weapon what it is. This is for column 3 is specifically for dreadnought upgrades, as far as I can tell. Column 4, not important. Column 5 is also not important, but is important. It's something that I need to look into later. But 6, don't touch. Whatever you do, do not touch. 7, those are descriptions. Descriptions are in another they are in another spreadsheet of their own. Icon index. This is for if you were to look at the game and see what it's doing. In fact, I'll launch it. Where is the icon index is going to be a little bit more important. So while the game is loading up, sound. So this is for very specific ability. This is specifically for orbital abilities, and there is a reason why it is for orbital abilities only. Next is the rate of fire. This is the reload in seconds that a weapon will take to reload. Shots per volley. This is the number of attacks that will occur. For lasers, keep this at 1. Increasing it has problems. Duration or intervals. So duration is applied to lasers. Intervals is for everything else, however. So each weapon. So let's go with the Atlas Flak. If you have seen it, you will notice that it fires multiple shots very quickly. That is set with the intervals, and this is in seconds, so it will take 0. This is the wrong weapon. Let's go and find the Atlas Flak specifically. It has a 0.05 intervals, which is very fast. So there's that. Assuming Ashes has launched. It's still loading. Okay. So just a thing to note, for the actual rate of fire of the weapon, you need to take the rate of fire. Actually, I'll write it out. So it is rate of fire, and let's say it's 20. Actually, plus -1. Yes. This right here is a formula. So there's that. Also, bad habit, I have a push to top button normally. So that's the formula for reload.
Imagine a future.
Okay. So yes, the icon index, I will just show it off very quickly. Going back to it, I probably should be more professional about this, is going to be this stuff right here. Let's do that for now. Next, we will be talking about tiers. Tier 0 are drones. Tier 1 is frigates, Tier 2 is cruisers, Tier 3 dreadnoughts, Tier 4 juggernauts. Air targeting is for air, building is for buildings. There are 6 numbers that you can use for targeting. 0 through 5. 0 means that the weapon will not shoot this item at all. It will attempt to not do so. Whereas, and it will actually even go as far as to say, this weapon does no damage to this tier. Whereas if it's 5, it will have the lowest priority. So if you want your units to shoot a very specific thing, for example, tier 3, you will set it to 1 and you will set everything else to other tiers. Next, we have firing arc yaw, firing arc pitch, firing arc. This is for turrets. Yeah. So, here everything is in rads for this section. 6.283, this number right here, is going to be 360 degrees. So yes, pi is 3.14, for example. If we find one of those numbers here, just know that 3.14 is 180 degrees, 6.2 is 360. These swivel rates are for the turn rate of the weapon. So if you were to look here, you notice how these turrets turn. Increasing the swivel rates will increase this. However, mind you, it's worth noting that these weapons will, when scanning, will go at half traverse speed. This is something that you will normally not have access to, by the way. But I will be using it for that. So, Ashes is unique in the fact that every single thing that you see has a vision radius. For example, these weapons, the Annihilator Cannon, for example, has a vision of its own separate to the Nexus. The Neutron Beam has a vision of its own uh, and is not linked with the Nexus. The Atropos missiles also have a vision of their own, but do not see. And I'll explain why that is. So we're going to go back to here. All weapons have a minimum firing range, a maximum firing range, a tracking range, a max shot traverse. There is a specific magic number. That'll come after this. Ignore this column. It does a lot of things that I don't know what. And it's different for every single weapon. So the minimum firing range is how close the target can be before this weapon does not shoot at the enemy. The maximum firing range is the exact opposite. How far away can you be before the weapon can not hit? The tracking range is the vision range. So for example, if the weapon has a range of 900 meters, it can see 900 out. It can hit targets 900 out, but it doesn't see them if the tracking range is set to 0. So you do need the tracking range to at least be the maximum firing range. There is no minimum tracking range for the weapon, so it is possible for weapons to get stuck. For example, this will allow a weapon. So yeah, it is worth noting also that ranges are determined from where the weapon is placed on the unit. So this weapon right here has 900, and it will shoot out to about here. This weapon will probably shoot out to about here in comparison, if it has the firing arcs for it. Max shot traverse. This is the maximum distance that the shot will go before it doesn't work anymore. For example, this is primarily for things like constables, for example, that if I can get a constable out, doing that normally works. And then from there we just do this. This is the debug tool. So, also a heads up, turrets can capture nodes. We're just going to casually go through the tech of PHC. And I'm going to make sure that this AI can no longer expand. So the Constable is not known for being the fastest weapon. The missile is not known for being very fast. It has been buffed in the 3.0 balance patch, so it's not as relevant. But what will happen is the shot will come from here, go to the target, and it will continue for some distance until it doesn't work. Until the missile either is technically dies or it reaches that range. So there's that. AoE. I will get to this back to this in a bit. Specific magic number we're going to ignore for now. AP. So AP armor piercing is weird in this game. This is the best way to explain it. 1 AP will ignore 1 armor. This means that the weapon will do full damage if this is the case. However, if this is 2, it will do 5% less damage. If it's 3, it will do 10% less damage. So that's how armor and AP works. The reason why I set to 99 is just so that the game definitely knows that it's meant to be there. Base accuracy, I'm going to talk about this later because there's some other things that need to be talked about first. Scanning, this is to allow the weapon to move back and forth like you see right here, which is right here. Damage, this is how much damage each individual shot will do, or if it's in the case of a laser, how much damage it does per second. So next, impact type and weapon type. These don't really matter that much, but just the only one that truly matters is the overtime beam. Everything else can be direct kinetic, direct explosive, dispersed explosive, as you can see here. This specific magic number 2, ignore it, I don't know what it does. So, I'm going to move on to motion path we will get back to in a bit, but let's move to projectile speed. This is how fast the shot from the weapon will travel. If you were to see, for example, over here, the Smarty doesn't have a very fast velocity speed. So as you can see, also the Nexus is going to kill this turret. Oh, I didn't know that weapon has splash. Or at least on the animation does. Okay, so good to know. Required energy. This is how much a projectile, how much energy the weapon needs to fire. It is worth knowing that required energy does not work with certain weapons. It is not guaranteed to work, but just know that it should work for most weapons. If it's substrate weapons, they all should work that way. If it's PHC, it's going to be 50-50. However, on the flip side, this also is quanta. And this is to determine, this is for orbital abilities. So energy is mostly for substrate units. Quanta is for everybody. It will take, so for example, this is an area heal. It will take 125 quanta, and it will have, and in qualm for one, this is specifically for orbital abilities. This is how much it scales. It may say 0.25, but it's actually, but you need to remember that this is actually multiplying by 1.25. So this 125 will turn into 156.25 quanta. Yes, the game does go into decimal points. required flags. This is specifically for orbital abilities as far as I'm aware. And finally, we have missile locations. This is primarily for weapons that feature multiple hardpoints on their weapon. So I'll go back to this. A good unit. What's a good unit to use for this purpose? You're not. I think one of you is. You're a good example of this. Why am I building it? I don't need to build it. The nice thing about having. So where is it? Here it is. So as you can see, the Agamemnon is built fairly interesting. It has just in that there are multiple hardpoints within this in these missile launchers right here, and there are multiple hardpoints within this. Enjoy. Also, these are fun. In the case of the Agamemnon, the missile hardpoints do not affect the DPS of the unit. They are merely there for visual purposes, if anything else. So they're a bad example. Where is this construction? Okay, so I'm just trying to remember everything. So, in the case of substrate, you're going to have a few other units. Actually, I can remember a very good unit that this happens to. Another one of these units is going to be the Mauler, if I can find it. So the Mauler is unique. There is only a single weapon on its. This hyena laser array is only one weapon, but there are actually 4 on this unit, and these 4 weapons do actually fire all at once, and it does actually affect the DPS. Now it may say it does 33 DPS, but you need to multiply that by 4, which will turn out to be 133, if I recall correctly. So just in that, missile locations do affect DPS, but it varies from unit to unit. In the case of the Agamemnon, it doesn't. In the case of units like the Mauler, it does absolutely affect it. Okay. So next we're going back. So now I need to explain 2 quirks about how Ashes does things. So let's go to motion path type. All of these numbers have a very important meaning. They do far more than people may realize. This is how a projectile goes from point A to point B. This also determines how accuracy works, and on top of that, this determines if a weapon can have AoE. So the way that if you're going to if you look at all these numbers, they may not mean very much at the start. But 17, that's for flag, and that's for all anti-air but the Sky Cleanser's AA gun. From here, you're going to see a whole bunch of numbers. 65 is for the it is for very few weapons like the Eye and the Cronus's subsonic demolisher upgrade. Audio files are tied to the motion path type, so if you were to change this number, you will also change how the weapon sounds, which saves either a lot of time or creates more headache. Yes, and a few other things mentioned. Yes, you can change this number a lot. However, if you do so, just know that the weapon visual needs to line up with the projectile in its path. For example, if a destructor would actually fire its weapons straight at the target, but they're being rendered as going up and over to the target, that's perfectly fine. However, if it can work, the game is a little bit okay about that. What it's not okay with is something like a Hades having the motion path of the Hades bomb having the missile path of a bomb. Yes. So just make sure if the game crashes, just change the visual to be in line with. Actually, it's a better way of putting it. The weapon visual needs to be something similar to what the path actually is. So if your game is crashing when the weapon shoots, good news, it works, but you need to change the visual. And the best way to do that is to look for other weapons that use the same motion path and using their visual to do so. That's the quickest way to fix it. AoE. This is measured in meters, which is actually not that much. If I were to show what 200 AoE looks like, which is what the Agamemnon uses, as you can see, it's not a lot actually. So, okay, that's what. So keep in mind that with the way that the game is balanced out, you need at least 50 AoE to be effective. Against frigates, 100 to be effective versus cruisers. Don't try to be. I'm going to have to assume something like 700 to be effective against dreadnoughts if they're not stacking on top of themselves. So keep that in mind. Accuracy. This is completely dependent on the motion path and is divided into 3 categories. It does not. So the first category is this does nothing, which is very fun and easy to work with. If there is, if the weapon, if this category is not a factor in determining weapon DPS, it is set to 100% or 100. Next is a percentage chance to hit. So for example, if this is using a motion path that requires a percentage chance to hit, it has a 50-50 chance of each projectile hitting. Sorry, each individual projectile hitting or not. The dice keeps rerolling for each attack. Is the better way of putting it. Finally, the third category is dispersion. If you're familiar with World of Warships, think Sigma, and that's what it is. If you are not, basically, the lower the number, the more the shots are going to spread. They're going to hit a circle. Sorry, better way of explaining it is, um, yes. So here's a circle of, and this is usually hard coded. If you have a high sigma or a high accuracy, you're going to be hitting very much in the center most of the time. Whereas with very low accuracies, you're going to be hitting everything within the circle. So, and you will not be discriminating towards the center. You will be spreading out, which can be good for certain weapons and others not so much. Okay, I believe that's everything. Yes, I believe that is everything. Hopefully I got everything right. And hopefully this isn't as long as the first one was.